The fluorescent lights of Sarah's apartment buzzed overhead, casting a sterile glow on the room. We were sprawled across the worn carpet, surrounded by empty pizza boxes and half-eaten bags of chips, remnants of our movie marathon. Laughter still bubbled up from my chest as we rewound a particularly funny scene, the glow from Sarah's laptop reflecting in her bright blue eyes. But the laughter slowly died down, replaced by a yawn that escaped my lips. It was getting late. The hands on the clock on Sarah's wall mocked me. 11:30 p.m. My stomach lurched. My mom would be worried sick if I wasn't home soon. "All right, gotta go," I said with a sigh, stretching my stiff muscles. Sarah pouted playfully. "Aw, come on, just one more." I shook my head. Tempting, but I know my curfew. My mom will have my head on a silver platter if I walk in past midnight. We hugged goodbye, the warmth of it a stark contrast to the chill that awaited me outside. Sarah lived a few blocks away in a well-lit, populated area, while my house was on the outskirts of town, bordering a large park known for being a shortcut, but also notorious for being a bit creepy after dark. The park was never completely deserted, even at night. You'd see the occasional jogger or dog walker, a silhouette flitting through the trees under the dim glow of scattered streetlights. But tonight, it felt different. An oppressive silence hung heavy in the air, broken only by the rustle of leaves in the cold wind. The streetlights seemed further apart, casting long, inky shadows that danced across my path. Every creak of a branch, every rustle of leaves sent shivers down my spine. I pulled my jacket tighter around myself, wishing I hadn't worn my flimsy sneakers. The uneven ground beneath my feet and the gnarled branches reaching out from the trees like skeletal fingers did little to ease my growing anxiety. Halfway through the park, I saw him. A figure huddled on a park bench, its back turned to me. As I drew closer, the figure shifted. It was an old man, his head buried in his hands. His ragged clothes hung loosely on his bony frame, and a gnarled cane lay abandoned at his feet. "Excuse me," I said tentatively, my voice barely a whisper in the stillness. The old man didn't move. Hesitantly, I took a step closer. "Sir, are you all right?" I repeated, my voice a little louder this time. The figure slowly raised his head. My breath hitched in my throat. His face was a roadmap of wrinkles, etched with deep lines that spoke of a hard life. But it was his eyes that haunted me. They were an unsettling shade of gray, clouded with cataracts, yet somehow holding a spark of malice that sent a jolt of fear through me. "Lost, child?" he rasped, his voice like dry leaves rustling in the wind. I nodded, unable to form any words. His gaze seemed to pierce me, stripping away my bravado, leaving me feeling vulnerable and exposed. "Freedom Square," he croaked, his voice barely audible. "Can you show me the way?" My mind raced. Freedom Square was on the other side of town, nowhere near the park. My gut screamed at me to run, to leave this unsettling figure behind. But the pleading in his voice, the vulnerability in his sunken eyes, gave me pause. Maybe he was just genuinely lost. Maybe a little kindness wouldn't hurt. "Well, it's not exactly on the way," I stammered, my voice barely above a whisper. "But I can walk you to the main road, and you can catch a bus there." He let out a dry chuckle that sent shivers down my spine. "Buses don't run this late, child. Besides, my legs aren't what they used to be. Walking wouldn't be an option." He shifted on the bench, his face contorted in a grimace of pain. My heart twinged with sympathy. He looked frail, genuinely in need of help. Maybe my mom would understand a little delay if I explained the situation. "All right, come on," I sighed, cursing myself for my soft heart. He rose with surprising agility for someone who claimed to have bad legs. As he straightened, I noticed a dark stain spreading on his clothes, a stain that looked suspiciously like blood. My stomach lurched, but I pushed the thought aside. Maybe he had just fallen or hurt himself. We walked in silence, the old man's hunched figure casting an ominous shadow beside me. The park seemed to grow darker, the shadows deeper, as we ventured deeper into its embrace. The silence was broken only by the crunch of our footsteps on the gravel path and the occasional rustle of leaves in the wind. I tried to engage him in conversation, to distract myself from the growing unease that gnawed at my insides. But he responded with grunts and monosyllables, his eyes fixed on the ground ahead. As we neared the park's exit, I noticed a flicker of movement in the bushes to our left. A dark shape darted out, its eyes gleaming in the dim light. A wildcat, I thought, relieved. Just a wildcat. But the old man's reaction sent a fresh wave of fear coursing through me. He stiffened, his body trembling, his eyes widening in terror. He let out a strangled gasp and grabbed my arm, his grip surprisingly strong for his frail appearance. "What was that?" he hissed, his voice barely a whisper. "I think it was just a cat," I said, trying to sound calm, but my voice quavered with uncertainty. He shook his head violently, his eyes darting around as if expecting something to leap out from the shadows. "No," he whispered, his voice laced with fear. It was something else, something evil. His words sent a chill down my spine. I wanted to run, to escape this unsettling atmosphere and the old man's growing paranoia, but I couldn't abandon him. Not now, not when he seemed so genuinely afraid. "It's okay," I said, trying to reassure him, my voice barely above a whisper. "We're almost out of the park." We continued walking, his grip on my arm tightening with every step. Finally, we emerged from the park's shadowy embrace onto the well-lit streets of the neighborhood. The old man let out a sigh of relief, his body slumping against mine. "Thank you, child," he rasped, his voice trembling with gratitude. "You saved me." "Are you sure you'll be okay?" I asked, my voice laced with concern. He nodded, his gaze shifting away from me. "I'll be fine," he muttered. "Just need to find a place to rest for the night." I hesitated, my mind wrestling with the conflicting desires to help and to flee. The old man's appearance, his fear in the park, the blood stain on his clothes. Everything pointed to him being someone to avoid. But the plea in his eyes, the vulnerability etched on his face, tugged at my heartstrings. I couldn't just leave him out there, alone and afraid. "Here," I said, extending my hand towards him. "Let me walk you to a homeless shelter. They'll give you a warm bed and a hot meal." He hesitated for a moment, his gaze searching mine. Then, with a slow nod, he accepted my hand. We walked in silence, the old man's hand cold and clammy in mine. The neighborhood was quiet, the houses dark, their occupants asleep behind closed doors. As we approached the shelter, a large brick building with a metal door, the old man stopped. He turned to me, his eyes meeting mine for the first time. "Thank you, child," he said, his voice surprisingly gentle. "You've shown me more kindness than anyone has in a long time." I nodded, a small smile tugging at the corners of my lips. "It was no trouble," I said, though my heart still pounded with a mix of fear and relief. He reached out and placed a hand on my cheek, his touch surprisingly warm. "Remembered, child," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "Not everyone is who they seem." With that, he turned and walked towards the shelter, his hunched figure disappearing through the metal door. 2 years had passed since that chilling encounter in the park, but the memory of the old man and his cryptic warning still lingered in my mind, a shadow that refused to fade. Life had moved on, the routine of work, friends, and family filling my days, pushing the unsettling experience to the back of my consciousness. However, fate had a way of reminding me of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of the ordinary. One late evening, I found myself working overtime, the clock ticking past my usual exit time. The streets were deserted, the city lights casting long, eerie shadows that danced in the wind. As I hurried home, my footsteps echoing in the stillness, a sense of unease crept over me. The park, the shortcut I had avoided for years, loomed ahead, its dark expanse beckoning me. I hesitated, my heart pounding in my chest. Should I take the long way around, risking my mother's wrath? Or should I brave the park, hoping to reach home faster? My decision was made for me when I heard a wolf whistle, a harsh sound that sent a jolt of fear through me. I turned to see two figures emerging from the shadows, their faces obscured by the dim light. Panic surged through my veins. I turned and ran, my footsteps echoing through the deserted park. The men pursued me, their laughter echoing in the stillness. I could feel their hands reaching for me, their hot breath on my neck. I stumbled, my legs giving way beneath me. I fell to the ground, the hard pavement scraping my skin. A sharp pain shot through my head, darkness enveloping me. I heard the men's voices, their laughter turning to screams, their words a jumbled mess of fear and confusion. Then, I felt a familiar presence, a comforting warmth that seemed to radiate from the old man. He was there, his hunched figure bending over me, his eyes filled with a calm that contrasted with the chaos around me. "It's all right, child," he whispered, his voice gentle and soothing. "You're safe now." The darkness lifted, replaced by a sterile white light. I blinked, my eyes adjusting to the harsh glare. I was in a hospital room, the rhythmic beep of a heart monitor filling the air. A nurse approached me, her face etched with concern. "You've been through a lot, dear," she said, her voice soft and reassuring. Those two men, they're in a psychiatric facility now. They were muttering something about a man from the underworld taking their souls. My heart pounded in my chest. The old man's words echoed in my mind. Not everyone is who they seem. Had he somehow intervened that night, protecting me from those men? Or was it just a coincidence, a stroke of luck? I never saw the old man again, but his presence lingered in my memory, a reminder of the unseen forces that sometimes intervened in our lives, protecting us from dangers we couldn't even imagine. And I never forgot the old man's warning, not everyone is who they seem.